Hi, my name is Carmen Bowman. I have fun calling myself a regulator turned educator. I did get to survey in the state of Colorado for many years. I also got to work for CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Division of Nursing Homes in Baltimore. Being a federal surveyor and getting to train surveyors nationally, it's been my joy to be very involved in the culture change movement. A subcontractor then for CMS on a lot of culture change projects. I call my business Edu-Catering, catering education for compliance and culture change. So speaking of culture change, here is a definition. Culture change is a transformation that is anchored in values and beliefs that return control to the elders, to the older people, to the people who live in a nursing home and those who work closest with them. Our ultimate vision is a culture of aging that is actually life-affirming, it's actually satisfying, it's humane and meaningful. I love this part. Culture change can transform a facility into a home, a patient into a person, and a schedule into a choice. You will hear a lot more about that. In fact, you won't hear the institutional language so much, you'll hear change language. And this definition comes to us by the Pioneer Network. This was an organization that led the culture change movement for almost 30 years, founded in 1997. Look at the name, Pioneers. These folks across the country were really cutting a new path, swimming upstream against a very strong institutional culture. And they have 13 actually, core values. And one I'd like to draw to your attention is this: to put the person before the task. That is another way of saying culture change. When we say culture change, we do mean just changing the institutional culture. We also reference it, as you heard, as transforming institutional culture. Pioneers, again, here it is, transform cultures that are very rigid. We have a lot of rigid, rule-oriented cultures. Sadly, we don't have to. They've proven it. They've changed them to be more flexible so that team members, I say that instead of kind of that generic word staff, can honor resident preferences and choice is actually maximized. Our movement is really about changed mindset, changed heart, changed culture, changed principles, philosophy, values, and it's not about programs. I would love to encourage you to think about that word program. It's the mark of an institution. We call everything a program when your life and my life doesn't comprise of so many programs. And in recent days, the Pioneer Network and the Greenhouse Project have joined to now become the Center for Innovation. Let's look at the language. I'd love to show you something here. So if someone older has to move out of their home, the time has come to leave this dear home of 40 years that's so hard. Where do most people tend to move to first? Independent, what's it called? Independent living. And then they need more assistance. And where do they move to? Assisted, what's it called? Assisted living. And then they need more care. And what do we call it? Long-term care. I want you to watch this. Where did the living go? Even in our language, even in our titles, the living disappeared, but it doesn't have to. Something else I want to show you, and I'll bring it together here. CMS in the State Operations Manual, first section, definitions, back in 2016, defined for the first time person-centered care. It means to focus on the resident as the locus of control and support the resident, the person, in making their own choices and having control over their daily lives. Sadly, most nursing homes aren't known for that, but it's right in the regs. And something I want to point out is, to be honest, I don't know that that really defines care. I think it defines living. It's more than care. In fact, beware, person-centered care is not the same as culture change. Somewhere along the way, people started to interchange the terms. Culture includes care, but it's a lot more than care. So person-centered care does not equal culture change. And to be honest, the idea, the language of person-centered was already outdated when CMS did publish this in 2016. So think about person-centered. Wow, that's good, right? But in the movement, we had already moved on to calling it person-directed. One of the leaders in our movement, Dr. Maggie Calkins, pointed out at a big national event, the Creating Home Symposium in 2018, that self-directed is what we mean, because you and I want to self-direct our life as long as we live, no matter where we live. And so we had moved on to person-directed, self-directed, resident-directed, and we had moved on from care. Think about this. Care gets talked about a lot. Medical care, clinical care, care, long-term care, person-centered care. And what's missing, like I pointed out, even in the definition, I think it represents life personally. And so learning from others in this movement, we need to focus more on the life that people are living and not just the care that they are receiving. And we'd love to invite you to join us. In fact, that's a premise of this Culture Change Grant project that's been taking place in Wyoming for 3 years. We call it Implementing Culture Change Throughout Wyoming, Affecting Resident-Directed Living, and get this, team member retention. Why? Because 30 years of our culture change movement have shown you will retain and recruit team members to want to work there when it's a change culture. And so as a part of this grant, I got to work with 5 nursing homes per year, and I got to invite them to learn about culture change. They committed to education once a month, they committed to a coaching call once a month, and they committed to implementing at least 3 culture change practices. And it's my joy to tell you that every home ended up implementing more than 3. You'll see. So a famous tool in our movement is called the Artifacts of Culture Change, and it was actually funded by CMS, Division of Nursing Homes. I was very fortunate to be the subcontractor to design this tool that did come out in 2006, and it helped homes to show the changes they were making. In fact, think of the word artifacts. If you think of a culture that has gone on before us, an artifact is something we find to prove that it existed. So these are tangible, concrete things that you can go look at and practically touch. If there's a dog that lives in the building, you can go see it and pet it. And purposely, we didn't make it an interview tool. They also exist, but they're more time consuming. We wanted to get to the practices. And so this tool represents the practices of a change culture. So be aware, watch, look around at the artifacts of an institutional culture, and then realize that there's lots of artifacts of change culture that are now markers of home. They are practices that reflect home. And then we got a grant and came up with an Artifacts of Culture Change 2.0. In fact, the Pioneer Network received the grant, a CMP grant from the state of Maryland. Thank you, Maryland. And we redesigned it, and it now has a much more simple tally point system. A home would indicate whether or not they have a practice fully implemented or partially implemented or not implemented, and I like to add yet. This really is a self-assessment tool. We refer to it as an inspirational and educational tool as well, just because if you read it, you'll get excited and you will learn. And then you could decide to implement some of these practices, and then it can be a benchmarking tool where you perhaps complete it annually and see progress. The development of the Artifacts 2.0 version was done very carefully and deliberately by PhD Dr. Amy Elliott, who's worked with us with this tool the whole time and was careful to validate it and also get it published, which it now is, and it's part of the international journal called Activities, Adaptations, and Aging, Dignified and Purposeful Living for Older Adults. In fact, we are making this journal a culture change focused journal, and we do have an open call for papers for culture change and transformation, and we'd love to invite anyone to consider doing some research and getting it published in our journal. And now we turn our attention to Wyoming, and we zoom in to the town lander and Westward Heights Care Center. Here is how it all began.
Hi, my name is Sotia Canes. I am the Director of Nursing here at Westward Heights Care Center in Lander. I've been with Westward Heights for about 8 years. I started out here as a charge nurse, and then I became a staff development and infection control. During the pandemic, I took a big role as the Director of Nursing. So, it was super simple. One evening I happened to work a little late into the evening hours. And I was in my office catching up, during the pandemic. Everyone was super stressed and everything. And I just noticed one of my CNA, I can feel their stress level on the floor. And as they walked up and down, by my office, I was able to stop one of them and ask like, hey, is everything okay? Because I can sense your stress level, frustration, and what is going on. The CNA just simply say, well, it was like 7:30 in the afternoon. I only have so many hours to finish my job. So I would just keep asking, like, what do you mean? Can you tell me more? It's 7:30, what does that mean? Because I do not know what that means. So she's like, well, I get off at 10 o'clock at night and it's 7:30 now, so I only have 2.5 hours to get all the rest into bed. And at that time, like, okay, I'm just kind of think about it, processing, try to understand what that means. Why do my staff working, under this such stress level? So as she, move on and go back to her job performance to do her job, and I noticed another CNA walking by in the same stress level. I can feel it. So I went out and I talked to the CNA, like, hey, is everything okay? Can I help you? And I get the same response. She said, well, it's almost 8 o'clock now. I only have 2 more hours. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? And she said that, well, I have to put everybody down to bed. That is part of my job. With all the stress level, the next day, I think about it. I'm like, why is my staff is so stressed? Why is everyone have to go to bed by 10 o'clock at night? Why is my night shift CNA not putting the rest into bed? So I just kind of look into the process. What do we have in place here, and what can we do to make the change? Coincidentally enough, the next couple of days, I should say, I received an email coming through talking about the culture change, projects. And I was super excited as I read about the program briefly. I reached out to my administrator back then and say, hey, I think this is great opportunity. They talk about culture change. They talk about honest sleep, individualized, personalized plan of care for our people. So my administrator back then say, you know what, if you want to do it, let's do it. So I'm like, I got a green light. I was super excited, and I just started looking into it more. I signed up for it, and then I kind of just start get the process going.
So Westward Heights' 3 chosen practices were not waking people up. We call it natural awakening. Not even sleeping in, really. Think about sleeping in as sort of a odd terminology, like today I'm going to sleep in. It's better than that. It's not waking people up. It's also called natural awakening. Open dining to support people waking up at different times naturally. Preferences for a good night's sleep. And they did end up adding a 4th one, personalized med times. So you heard Sotia say that she asked why a lot. We recommend that. Many of you have heard of the 5 whys. That's kind of the idea. I've heard leaders in the culture change movement teach us to pull back the onion. So you can't do that, whatever it is. You say why, and then someone answers it because it's a reg. And then you say why, which reg? And then you say go find it and we'll read it. And to be honest, there's a lot of myths. Beware of many myths in this field. Why would that be? Because there are many regs and many opinions, right? And so do your research, find out. Did you know it's foundational to know your state and federal regulations? It will change you. It will build you up. It gives you a solid foundation. And, there's a lot of regs, and I just want to zoom in on one right here. Culture change is another way of saying quality of life. Did you know there's a federal reg for quality of life for each resident? Did you know CMS added to quality of life this first sentence here that it is a fundamental principle of all care and services? Again, for each resident, not a group, not the big group of them, for each. Is anyone asking them what quality of life means to them? It's usually not care plan. There's no requirement for a quality of life director. In fact, I personally think this is part of the problem. It sort of gets lost. Don't let it get lost. Be intentional. Create a quality of life team, a quality of life coordination. Make sure it gets into every single person's care plan. There's so much we can do right here.
So after I got connected with Carmen about the culture change program or projects, we talked it through, and she asked me, what do you want to focus on? And me personally, as the director of nursing, I want to make it more like a home environment for our people. This is their home. And when I see and feel like my CNA, my staff, like want to put our residents to bed when they're not ready because they under, time frame, that is not home, for our people. We need to be able to, honor them. We do what they want us to do, not the other way around. So with that, the one thing that I was focusing on is honoring sleep. So that is my follow-up question, I guess, the next couple of days, with my team, because now that I kind of having, understanding my process that in place, how we have been taking care of our people, I take into my hand with the culture change program and everything. It kind of give me that tool, to start asking the why. I do like to ask a lot of why questions because I want to know, because we here at Westward Heights, we focus on quality care and quality of life. So with the quality of life, if we do what we need to put our residents, against what they want, that is not quality of life, and that's not really quality of care. So with that, I asked the CNA the next day, and I say, so can you tell me more? Like, what if a resident that you approach does not want to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night? What happened then? And the CNA said, well, I reapproach them. I said, okay, what if they still say no? She said, well, I just come back. The CNA simply tell me that she go get a nurse. It's just kind of like how we look at the nurse, like, well, this is this magic person, like in charge of this people's life and sleep, and this person gonna walk right into this door because she a nurse and she can make this person go to bed and go to sleep.
I really appreciate Sotia's honesty. We kind of do treat nurses like they're the fairy godmother. They're in charge, and we're calling that out. It's that they shouldn't be in charge. Do you see that? Who should be in charge? The person. Person-directed living. And so you could help make that out. Here's a brave director of nursing calling it out. You can call it out as well. In fact, here is a story that's very fitting about this very issue.
We have one of our CNA, she was working night shift. When we started with our culture change last year, when we're talking about not waking people up or honor their sleep pattern, of their choice, she usually worked from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So when, we try to make some changes, according to that, and she got very, very upset, because when she showed up to work at 10 p.m. one shift and people were still awake, and she was not okay with that. She said, it's 10 o'clock, everyone's not in bed. What am I supposed to do with these people? How come no one is in bed? Like, how come the evening CNA not doing their job? So that's how she was looking at it, that way, because that's how we, it was our culture here. So she's got upset. She gave me a call, and I explained about the culture change project that we, participant and try to make it better for our residents, individualized care, personalized, and when we talk it through and pretty much just kind of be realistic about it. So the classic example I gave to her is like, if I were to come to your home and tell you you need to go to bed by 8 o'clock and you don't want to, what will you respond? Like, well, I'm not going to do it. Okay, so it's the same for our residents, for our people, the same thing. We cannot put a time limit, and we cannot say this is your bedtime, and you have to do it this way, because it is not our way, it is their way. This is their home. So we kind of talking through a lot of it, go through some stuff, and then she, I'll be going through more, and she like, you know what? You're right. It makes so much sense. Like, I never thought about like that before. She like, I have worked at a nursing home, and this is what we do. Evening shift responsibility to put everyone down to bed. And by the time I come on shift at 10, I expect everyone to be like sleeping and no one is waking up. So so that was a great thing. And then she, as as we start doing it and see the change, and she see how happy our people were. And then obviously we do have some data to show, because one of the reasons why we're connecting to this sleep thing is fall. And now we see the fall have decreased slowly as we started. And she called me back and she say, wow, Sotia, it makes so much sense, why we doing the way we do. And then obviously she wants to be part of it. And so we kind of started that journey. Yeah. So I think the process, it was simple. I think it was just a part of that, what do we want for our resident? When we have our people here coming to Westward Heights, we promise the dignity of life, quality of care, quality of life, all of that. So, how do we put all that into action, pretty much? So now that I have a background from my staff, now I, and then of course again with the culture change projects that allow me to take it one more step further to make this happen for our people who live here at Westward Heights. So with that, I think how I pretty much started is with our CNA, nurses, medication aid. Got more idea, more question, what do they see on the floor, what can we do? And as soon as we get all those information, I start talking to my leadership nurses. That is my ADON, Shayna. She is in charge of bowel and bladder programs, so she start implementing. She like, well, why don't we put out a bowel and bladder program onto the floor to see if we can kind of getting more like a understanding, like, like their bowel and bladder pattern, pretty much, so we don't have to wake them up every 2 hours. And we can just kind of go from there.
Hi, my name is Shayna Goff. I'm the Assistant Director of Nursing at Westward Heights Care Center. I'm going on my 5th year working here. Since the culture change started, I've changed the way that I've done the bowel and bladder assessments for the people who live here. It used to be just a standard that we woke you up every 2 hours, we check and changed you. And then once we started the culture change initiative, we started putting out assessments that were specifically for night shift. And then we would see what their habits were, but then we would just look at the times that they're naturally waking up that they need to go to the bathroom, and that's what we would set their schedules around.
So originally we always had more of a set schedule for our residents to be assisted into bed. And typically that came before night shift came in. It was just kind of our standard. And then working with this initiative, we began to encourage people to tell us when they wanted to go to bed, when they felt comfortable, when they felt tired. And then it gave us the tools and the ability to help them really support their choices so that we could help them to bed whenever they felt like it. There are some that we still look for those cues if they're not able to verbally tell us when they feel like they may be getting tired, and then we can approach them. Others, we simply wait for them to tell us they're ready. And that gives us a chance to really support their decisions when it comes to when they feel ready to go to bed.
After completing one hallway, we did it for the rest of the hallways for the people that were currently already residing in our building. And then after that, it just became common practice. Every time a new person came in, it was, what do you need to sleep and when do you wake up to go to the bathroom? So then we could set their schedules around their personal preferences, and it allowed our night shift to have more time to do other cares or be with people more one-on-one, but it also gave our residents more time to sleep, which improved wound healing, improved their mood throughout the day, and just improved overall functionality of when they were awake during, or when they were up during awake hours.
It just became common practice. Isn't that fantastic? And look at what the nurse said. Sleep improved wound healing. Sleep improved skin. Of course it improved mood. It improved someone's functioning. Did you hear that? It also saved time. They ended up with more time, and we're in a staffing crunch. The job improves. There's no battle. There are so many improvements in this story. I'm having a hard time keeping up.
We give our resident the medication, because that's just part of our job, as a medication aide and as the nurse, that's what you're supposed to do. So our old way, I would say, I call it old way, we schedule the medication on our time, what is convenient for us, how we can get it done the fastest, things like that. So that means, at 6 o'clock in the morning, we'll go wake them up to give them their medication, and the purpose behind that, why we did it the way we did, because, we have a lot of residents, a lot of people. So if I give these people their 6 o'clock medication, even though I have to wake them up, I can move on to the next one. Those like our people is like number, number one down, I have, 25 to go, next one, now I have 24 to go, and so on and so forth, So with that, and then when we talk about, when we sign up to the culture change project, we look at it, in the big picture, we like, why we treating our people like a number, and forget that these are people, this is their home. And then it's a kind of reflection and kind of thinking back about like me, I take multivitamins every day, but I don't take it at 8 o'clock every morning. I take it today at 8, I take next day, I may take it at noon or at 1 o'clock, because that's when I wake up or when I remember, whatever that means, So with the culture change, I think it can kind of help us focus more on that part and kind of make a big deal out of it. Like, no, this is not the right way. We don't want, we want to treat our people like people, because they deserve that and stuff. So we start talking about it with our team, and start kind of making some change, and so one of them, how we started is that look at the person. Okay, so we kind of start talking to our staff. Okay, this person, what time they normally wake up, what time do they go to bed, what time do they eat, things like that, and what are they taking. So, myself, I dive into their medication list. I spend hours in the beginning, to go through every single one. And then start, when you look and pay more attention, to the medication, you also start questioning, why these people are on like, 10, 20, medication, is there any of those medication can be discontinued? Is it really necessarily for these people to be on like multivitamin, vitamin C, whatever supplement they do they still need that? They do need it, because some of the medication has been prescribed like 10 years ago when they move in here. But now it's 10 years later now, do they still need it? Do you still get the benefit from those medications? So our first step that's just our first step. We go through all the medication. We talk to the resident and family. We talk to our staff, because we know our resident best about their routine. What time they normally get up, what time they go to bed, and we make those time change based on that. The medication, I get our pharmacist consultant involved to look into it, and she obviously, on board with that, and to send a recommendation to the provider to discontinue all the unnecessary medication, including like multivitamins or any vitamins. And, thankfully, our provider are super on board as well. so that, so when you decrease the amount of medication that a resident has to take, that obviously help, save the time that you have to pass those medication. It give our resident a better quality of life because now they can just like, oh, okay, this is what I need, and they okay with that, So that was a really good start. And as of today, moving forward, a year later, our resident loves it, because it's about them now. Our employee loves it because it's about the resident, And when we start decrease the amount of medication again, it saves their time as well. So the time that they save on popping and, give all those medication, they have more time to spend with the resident, as a person, like, those extra 2 minutes, that's still extra 2 minutes that we did not have before. And now that we do to, either to listen to their story, to get to know them better, whatever that may be. And then with, all those changes that we made, we also able to decrease amount of hours that require for the medication aid to be in our buildings. So prior to the project, to the culture change project, we schedule 16 hours a day for the medication aid. But as the time goes, the changes been made, things like that, so now we are able to schedule med aid to 11 hours instead of 16. So that's 5 hours a day, save in labor. So I mean, the overall picture of this, the resident get what they want is quality of life. That's what they want, less medication. And then our staff that work and life balance, because they get to go home sooner, they work less day, less hour, they happy. I mean, that was a win-win situation for everybody.
Look at what discontinuing many medications brings about: better quality of life, less meds to pass, saved time. Oh my goodness, fewer team members needed. And she even shows us the math. They used to need 16 hours a day in med aid hours, now 11. That is 5 hours of saved labor. Who gets to brag on these kind of outcomes? I do hear almost everyone say, this can't be done. This cannot be done now with staffing shortages. This cannot be done during these days. I hear it from survey agency directors to everyone. And I'm so happy to show you all that yes, it can be done. This project took place during COVID and after COVID in the days right now of continued staffing crisis.
With the individualized, pass, the other thing, in beginning, and I think it's just one of the things that people are just really scared to make the change of time, when the resident should take their medication. So this one example that I'm going to share with you is what drives us all crazy. Our residents want to go to bed early because that's what they want, and that's fine, So majority of people go to bed about 6, 7 o'clock, 6 to 8 o'clock. That's when they go to bed. So we will get them all ready, the aid, and get them all tucked in bed. They obviously fall asleep very fast, and then we, either the medication aid or the nurses will go in there, to wake them up, to give them their sleeping medication, either like a melatonin and then later on a trazodone. So, and we look at you like, why are we waking people up to give them their sleeping medication? They are asleep, already. So, so with the new culture change and with everything that we have done in the last year, the amount of people that need a sleeping aid have decreased because they have a good night's sleep every single night. They wake up whenever they want next morning. It could be 6 if that one is, if their body wake up at 6. Next morning, it could be 7 because that's, to be allowed that natural waking up every single day and every single morning. So it does help us so much. I personally have not asked for a melatonin or any sleeping aid for a while. So that has been working really well. shouldn't question, the providers, judgment. So that's one. And sometimes, the family is also part of that as well. They say like my mom used to take melatonin when she's at home, and this is what I want her to take. I mean, it just those things like that. I mean, so it doesn't matter they asleep. We just don't use our judgment, I guess, as a nurse or as a med aid. So moving forward, with our culture change projects, what we have learned, we'll treat our people as human, as a whole. We are not a pill pusher, and we're not a robot. Just because a providers, order that medication at 8 o'clock, for example, it doesn't mean we have to do it at that time. We'll look at our people, we'll get to know them, and we'll ask them for the input. Like, hey, I noticed that you normally go to sleep at 6 o'clock. What time would you like to take your medication? Because, regardless with what we have done in the last year, there's still some resident will say, yeah, wake me up at midnight to give me my pain medication because I do not want to wake up in pain. And by all means, that's what we do, and that's what we'll continue to do for our people. We treat our people as a whole. We look at them as a whole, and just stay flexible, and just let them know that they make the choice, and we'll honor those choices. So this is their home, and we want to, we are here to honor whatever that they need. Either that medication at 8 o'clock in the morning, if that's what they want. Either the medication at noon or at 10 a.m. Just so that they are in charge, and we are here to promote that and honor that. If they cannot sleep, why is that? Why can't they sleep? Before we just jump into like a medication. And so I think that's kind of where we are today. The rest of our family tell us, we just kind of switch role. They tell us, and we honor that.
Well, we really try to talk with the residents about their personal preferences and how they've done things at home. We ask them when they like to get up. Are they an early riser? Are they one of the people that likes to sleep in? Do they eat breakfast? Are they a wait until lunch kind of person? Same with going to bed and bedtime meds. Are you a person that typically goes to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening, or do you stay up and watch the news until 11 or so? And then we try to adjust our pill pastimes to that and make it more as if when they were getting their pills at home.
It's helped a lot in the fact that we have made things where it's more tuned to our neighbors and what they want and how they want things. If they want to sleep in, they are not going to get woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. If they want to sleep till 9, we give them their meds at 9 o'clock if that's what time they want to get up. Same way, those that go to bed early get their medications early. Those that go to bed late get their medications late. It makes them a lot happier, makes it easier to move around the building. You're not always stressed trying to get medications to people by a certain time. We give it to them on their own time. And it's made a big difference. I've been doing this as a medication aide for 3 years. I've been at Westward Heights for 11 and a half years. And they're a lot happier. And it's a lot easier for me for time management as well. They're not getting their pills too early or too late that make them groggy or grouchy because they're not getting, pain medication per se on time for them, what works for them.
So I just want to show you here one of the culture change practices reflected in the artifacts tool is this very practice that meds are actually delivered according to each person's daily rhythm. Ha! How do you like that? And I just want to show you right here as well, the whole idea of not waking people up is a culture change practice, again in the artifacts tool, that the home supports each person and their natural awakening rather than waking them on a set schedule. And did you know this is very well supported in the regulations, as you see right there in the parenthesis at the artifact item. So I want to show this to you. Tag F561, self-determination. It's always said this since 1987 that people have the right to choose. I just want to highlight schedules. The right to choose schedules since 1987. And then CMS added the next part in parentheses, including sleeping and waking times. Also, since 1987, the right to make choices about aspects of his or her life that are significant to them. Would sleep be significant to you? It would be significant to me. And look at this. When it comes to sleep, what is true choice actually? See, it's not walking around asking everybody, when do you want to get up? That sounds anti-choice. It's not. You know why? You know. What is true choice when it comes to sleep? Your body gets to decide. Your body sleeps until it's had enough, and then it wakes up. That's why we call it natural awakening. And it goes on. Look at this. CMS, in its own guidance, says that this includes choices about their schedules, again, important to them, such as waking, eating, bathing, going to bed. And we are to ensure that residents are able to get enough sleep, and this is an important contributor to overall health and well-being. That's right. Personally, I wish there was a reg that just said honor each individual's sleep. But we have enough. We have more here. If you keep rolling through the guidance, it also says that these preferences and information about a person's own schedules, their routines, should be sought proactively, yay, to fulfill their choices. And homes must not develop a schedule for care, such as waking or bathing, for staff convenience and without the input of the residents. Did you know that is part of requirements for nursing homes?
I have found that since the culture change and trying to base their routines more on their routine that they had at home, and instead of just us taking and being like, we need this changed now, we need to give you your meds now, it's on their schedule, and they feel more comfortable here with us. They're more likely to be themselves with us. They interact more. They generally get better sleep when we try not to wake them up throughout the night if they are incontinent. We try to just let them be themselves and go along with their routines and the things that they want. We don't pressure them into waking up when they don't want to. We don't pressure them into like, you have to go eat this meal right now. We can save their food for a little bit later if they're not hungry at that time. And it makes for a happier environment and makes them more willing to work with us.
And now this practice is known as open dining, where each meal is available for at least 2 hours.
It has definitely made all of the neighbors very happy because they can sleep in, they get up on their own schedule. However, breakfast used to run with us from like 7:30 to 9:30, 10 o'clock, and now we're going clear into like 11:30. And then not everyone's in the dining room at the same time. So it's definitely spread us out a little bit, but it makes everybody very happy. So I kind of explained like how breakfast runs from like 7:30, sometimes now maybe till 11:30. I do have to say that the residents now might not eat all 3 meals, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner during their day, because if they slept in and ate at like 11:30, they're not necessarily hungry at lunchtime. However, their intake has greatly increased. We don't do near as many supplements throughout the day with different residents, which that is also good. And our weight loss has dramatically decreased, and we have very, very little weight loss.
Tara also has been very honest in looking at these practices. Look at this. She says, we train the people who live here to come eat at 3 meals a day, whether they want to or not, at some times, whether they want to or not. Then we also set a lot of snacks in front of them, and then they gain weight. Let's say someone gains 20 pounds. And now, because of the weight gain, we have to go after the weight gain and put some approaches into place to help them lose weight. And then if they do lose the weight, guess what happens next? They trigger on the MDS for weight loss. She called that process out. Isn't that too bad? And another fun story, Debbie, who was a cook at Westward Heights, one day on a coaching call, I said to her, so Debbie, do you really have open dining or not? I wasn't clear early on. And she said, oh yeah. Now we just go with the flow. Isn't that wonderful?
Yesterday was a better example than today. I woke up, but yesterday I slept probably till 9 o'clock. And I don't know whether anybody come in or I just woke up, and I get up and get myself ready, and then I come out and I go down to breakfast. It makes me feel like it was as if I was living at home. I lived on my own, so it's just about the same.
So, it's create more positive culture. People want to come to work, and I think since we are not waking people up, the labor also have decreased as well, meaning that, we are able to staff less people in our building. So, before our culture change, we have 2 nurses on night shift, and then we have 3 to 4 CNA. Since now, in the beginning, we're still doing a process, but now we are in a solid, where we needed to be. We are able to decrease that staffing to 1 nurse on night and 3 CNA on night shift. And with our fall number have also decreased. So since we start this culture change, what we noticed that in our old way, we go wake our people up every 2 hours. And again, because that's what we were taught. So now at 2 in the morning, I'm gonna go wake this individual up, because I have to change them, I have to check on them. And then 4 o'clock, I'm gonna go do the same things. And with our people who are having a hard time falling asleep, now we wake them up a couple of times. One, they cannot go back to sleep. So when they cannot go back to sleep, what are they gonna try to do? They're gonna try to get up out of bed, and therefore lead to the fall. So, since we allow them to sleep on their own time, naturally, our fall number have decreased tremendously. So, so obviously we focus on our quality major, pressure ulcer, fall. Again, those our fear when we start this program and stuff. I think our fear, and why I say fear is because back before we start the culture change, we do have a lot of pressure ulcer, a lot of skin issue, and a lot of fall. So now that, we cutting back on not waking people up, not changing them, not get them to the bathroom every 2 hours, obviously to me it makes sense that our pressure ulcer and our fall gonna increase. But you know what? That's not true. It is not true, and I will always stand by that because I'm very proud of all my team and with this culture change that everyone put a full effort into this. We talk about this. Our pressure ulcer have decreased, and our fall have decreased. And I think the reason why, it have decreased for me and for us, what we see is that because you allow them to sleep. So when you allow them to sleep, it promotes healing. The body have time to heal. So when they also sleep, our people are more engaged during the daytime. They participate in therapy. They able to enjoy their meal in a dining room. We don't give a lot of supplement. Our supplement also have cut down because again, they more engaged, they more awake, they participate. So all those things help and allow our body to heal naturally. Well, just like any changes, it's hard. But I think, again, the key is communication. Communication, transparency, patience, and time. We got to allow time for these to work, right? Because, we are nurses and our CNA, med aid, we were taught that, this is what we do. We're supposed to wake everyone up every 2 hours. We're supposed to take them to the bathroom every 2 hours. Everyone's supposed to be eating at a certain time, a certain meal, things like that.
Think about that, everyone. We wake everyone up every 2 hours. We check and change every 2 hours. We take them to the bathroom every 2 hours. We take them to a meal at a certain time. I appreciate how Sotia lined that up. You know what that is? That's generic care. And we're supposed to give individualized care.
So when we first started the Culture Call initiative, we discussed good sleep habits. And part of that was that we were repositioning residents every 2 hours, no matter what. And then we just started discussing if the resident could reposition themselves, there was no reason for us to go in and further disturb their sleep by repositioning them again. So we kind of took that initiative and educated our night staff about it. So when they go by rooms and do rounds, if they notice that the resident has been able to reposition themselves into a new position, then there's no reason for us to wake them up and do it again. It just decreased our amount of time that we are waking and disturbing the people that were sleeping in the building.
So with the family or resident, we ask them what do you need for a good night's sleep, and obviously we get some, different answer because some people, like to have a fan on, like to have a lights on. Some individual, like to sleep in the dark, or some music, some noise, a couple blanket, pillow under their leg. I mean, you name it, all of it. And I think at this point now we're in this our culture change project for about 1 year now. We feel like we are pretty much getting to know our resident individually, and we know exactly what they need to have a good night's sleep.
When we started the Good Sleep initiative in the building, we started with one hallway or neighborhood. It gave us just a chance to really pinpoint and see what we needed to do moving forward. The first thing we did is we put out sleep studies and bowel and bladder assessments just for night shift. And that gave us a time to really break down when they were waking up naturally and when we needed to intervene and do some either repositioning or check and change. By the end of that first month, we had one hallway that was completely on a new program or initiative to only be woken up when they were naturally waking themselves to use the bathroom or when it was ultimately necessary for them to be check and changed. And the amount of improvement we've seen in people's sleeping, eating, everything was just astronomical within that first month, just doing it in one hallway. We did it about 3 or 4 people over a 3-day span. So it took us probably the full month to get everybody through the assessments and knowing what we needed to do for each one individually. And now in our practice, we do it upon assessment. We do those sleep studies and those bowel and bladder assessments right when they come in our door so that we can get them those good sleep habits right at the beginning.
I think our skin have got, a lot better, just simply because our residents, they sleeping at night. So I mean, when we sleep, our body heal itself, and by us honoring their sleep pattern, we honor their body as well to heal. We also, use the pressure reduction mattresses and utilize more the overnight incontinent products. So we just, make those products, put them to work pretty much, so we don't have to do the work, but we have all the supply, the tool, resources, and we're utilizing that, to help us and to help our residents have a better night's sleep. So when we start with the culture change, we're looking to come up with something that sound really professional, or so the word we come up with is sleep hygiene. And as we talked, to my leadership nurses, they like, what, that is a very good, word. I like that. Good terminology. It sounds really smart. It just sounds like, it's so you. I mean, you super smart, and this is great. No one ever said this before, the sleep hygiene. Until I realized when we shared that with the rest of our team, everyone was questioning what the sleep hygiene would mean. No one understands the terminology. So, so we obviously, figure it out and work it through to come up with something, that make it easier for people to understand. And sometimes I think, just as nurses, we want to sound like, yep, we professional, we smart people, we got to say this big word or come up with this something, to make us look, like we nurses. But I think sometimes just the basic thing. Let's focus, on honoring our residents will have a good night's sleep. That was too simple, but at the end, that's what we go with. So now we honoring our residents good night's sleep.
Sleep hygiene. Isn't that funny? One time I was at a training and I was hearing it, and I asked, what are you saying? What is that word? And what is the hygiene, sleep hygiene? What does that mean? And the nurse, it's funny looking back, was seemed very proud to explain it to me, the person who's not a nurse. And then just for fun, I said it to my family. I said, sleep hygiene. And they both go, what? And I said, sleep hygiene. What do you think that means? My husband said, sleep and wash your hands. And my daughter said, sleep and brush your teeth. It kind of proves the point, right? And then it's so much fun to talk about what people need for a good night's sleep. If we were together in a big crowd, it's so much fun to maybe say, who loves a fan? Raise your hand. Who doesn't love a fan? They tend to be opposite. Who loves it pitch black dark? Who needs a little light? Who wants it really cold? Who likes it a little bit warmer? And you just go through with people. Do you have the right blankets? Do you have the right pillows? Are your pajamas right for you? Do they cover you the way you want to be? Who wears socks? Most people don't, but some do. Nowadays you can offer eye masks if it's helpful to block out some light. We have roommates in many cases, right? Maybe earplugs, they help me a lot. Maybe the certain tea before you sleep, a snack before you sleep. So have fun if you have the ability to help a person express what they need for a good night's sleep.
Convivium. Convivium is a word that's derived from another word, convivial, which means pleasant, friendly, or relaxed. Convivium means to prepare, give a feast or dinner, to welcome someone to one's table, to improve life through food. So before I came to Westward Heights, I worked at a greenhouse nursing home, and part of the greenhouse model is convivium. So greenhouse model consists of making the nursing home as most like home as possible. Convivium is where the staff and residents eat together. It's like a family style meal where if I'm helping a resident eat, then I'm eating at the same time. At Westward Heights, Convivium is a goal. Pre-COVID, we had dining room tables pushed together where several residents could eat their meals together. During COVID, the restrictions did not allow us to do that, but now those restrictions have lifted and we have the tables pushed back together. More residents are willing to come to the dining room and more residents get to know each other and they really enjoy it. One of my favorite things about Convivium at Westward Heights is that the residents are able to create relationships with each other. There is a particular resident that I'm thinking of, and when he first came to Westward Heights, he didn't know anyone and he isolated himself to his room a lot. Once he came to the dining room and sat at the big table, he became friends with several of the residents. In fact, a friend that he made at the dining room table wasn't feeling well the other day and asked for him to visit. Now that we have the tables pushed back together, our next goal is to have our team members eat with their residents.
So another way to say convivium is simply that team members who work there are welcome to dine with the people who live there. That is a premise of our movement. It's a practice. It's also within the artifacts. And I encourage anyone who can make that happen to just do it. You know, it's time that we agree it's a beautiful thing to do together.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Delbridge. I'm the administrator at Westward Heights Care Center in Lander. I love our community so much. I'm so thankful to be a part of it and especially be a part of our culture change that we started. The whole community was built into this culture change, and it's really exciting. We have seen some data, some numbers, and just some overall impression from the people that live here as well. So it's really exciting from our neighbors to hear that they see a change as well. For one of our things that we worked really hard on is our bonuses. So we used to give out bonuses for each shift if we were short-staffed or needed some extra people to come in and help. And so we would give them $10 to $15 to $20 extra an hour to come in on those times. And we have not had to do that, especially on our night shift. Our night shift was a huge part of that to get people to come in. And that is because of the culture change. That is because we are not overworking our employees to where they just get so burnt out that they just can't do it, and that we had to pay them money, like so much money to come in. And so now we don't have to do that, and we're really excited. We've seen a huge change in that. The biggest number that we spent on that per year was $68,000. And so far in 2023, actually since September of 2022, we have not given out any of those bonuses. Our next thing that we worked really hard on and that we've seen an improvement in is our retention and our revolving door. So we were able to, I have some data here, we were able to look back at quarterly, and then we were able to look back annually. So in the quarter in 2022, April, May, and June, we were retaining 69% of our employees. And that actually jumped up to 86% the third quarter of that year. So July, August, September, and we're very happy with those numbers. Then when we looked back on it annually in 2021, we've seen that we were retaining 68% of our employees. But then we looked back again at the last year since as of December 31st, 2022, and that number increased to we were retaining 75% of our employees. So we're really happy with that data, with those numbers, and it just makes a huge overall impact on the community that we have here. Another part that we've looked at, just as the administrator, I look into all sorts of different things, is our overtime, and that costs our building a lot of money. And so we are able to save in overtime hours, we were seeing 180 to 200 hours per week of overtime hours. And that was just in nursing. And so now we see an average about 120 hours. And so that has a huge impact on all of us. But really those employees that are working so hard and working all those hours, we don't want to see that burnout for our employees. So it's important that we keep that overtime, in a reasonable amount, and we are super happy with that. And it is really because of this culture change and able to see outcomes.
We need to respect our residents when it comes to keeping that dignity and not forcing somebody to do something that they don't want. It's kind of hard to tell a grown adult who has many years behind their belt before you, hey, it's time to go to bed. Yeah, we can't be talking to them that way.